Welcome. I'm Layne Rogerson, CBF Endorser Chaplain and Chairperson for the Council on Endorsement. We are so glad that you have joined us as we celebrate during this virtual gathering the ministries of our chaplains and pastoral counselors in their specialized settings. I'm coming to you today from my home, my kitchen in Sherall, South Carolina. Sherall is my hometown and has been a community that has loved me and nurtured me. And my husband and I were glad to move back so that we could be close to my parents and so that we could help them tend the farm. I did live and serve in Eastern North Carolina for many years, both on church staff and as a hospice chaplain. During my years as a hospice chaplain, there were several occurrences that really have stuck in my mind. Once when I pulled up to a patient's house with a nurse, and the nurse looked over to me and said, "This was my second grade teacher." I also remember walking up the steps to a patient's house with a social worker and saying, "I used to live right across the street, and I can't tell you how many times I've been in and out that door." I have to admit, in some strange way, I was envious. They were able to take care of the people who were so special and formative in their lives. When I moved back home, I joined the staff of McLeod Hospice as chaplain and volunteer coordinator. And it has been such an honor to sit at the bedside of my elementary school teacher, my high school math teacher, my choir director, my neighbor, my cousin, parents of friends. It's been an honor to bring comfort to the people who were so important in my life. I oftentimes say that I have the privilege to come back home and take care of the people who took care of me. The Endorsement Council has the sacred task of reviewing applications of chaplains and pastoral counselors and walk that leg of the journey with the applicants toward endorsement and integration into the CBF family. As our endorsees serve throughout the United States and even the world, often in places that do not have a CBF presence. And it is indeed a sacred task as members of the council, as we read the extensive application that includes stories of childhood and family, call to ministry, theology, church affiliation, spiritual formation, bumps and bruises, and a call to a particular ministry setting. It is such a holy experience to bear witness to people's stories of beauty, pain, and the movement of God's Spirit. People's courage, perseverance, and Christ's redeeming love. We have candidates who are in their 20s, just beginning their ministries. And we have candidates in their 60s and 70s who are finding new ways to live out their calling. And we have folks of every age in between. We are grateful for Renee, Owen, and Carol Wilson, who lead our team, chaplains and pastoral counselors. There is so much I want to say about the great work that God is doing, bringing comfort and hope and peace throughout this beautifully diverse group of nearly 800 chaplains and pastoral counselors that represent Cooperative Baptist Fellowship around the globe. I am excited that today you will get to meet a few of them. So welcome, sit back, and enjoy meeting a few of these incredible folks who each day take the love of Jesus Christ to those who long for his comfort, peace, and hope. Again, welcome.
Hello, I'm Renee Lloyd Owen, CBF Endorser for Chaplaincy and Pastoral Counseling Ministries. Since 1998, CBF has been endorsing chaplains and pastoral counselors to specialized ministry settings outside of the local church. These settings include hospitals and hospice organizations, each branch of the United States Armed Forces, correctional institutions, police, fire, and rescue departments, colleges and universities, businesses and industries, retirement communities, the Department of Veterans Affairs, the National Guard, and the Civil Air Patrol, as well as many other specialized settings. CBF endorsed pastoral counselors serve in counseling centers, interdisciplinary settings, and on church staffs. More than 1,200 chaplains and pastoral counselors have been endorsed by CBF since 1998, with over 800 currently active in their ministries. Chaplains and pastoral counselors are required to be endorsed by their faith tradition to obtain jobs, allowing them to live out their call to ministry. The process of endorsement ensures an employer that the chaplain or pastoral counselor has been vetted by his or her denomination and is well prepared educationally, mentally, and spiritually to offer religious, spiritual, and emotional care to others. Prior to assuming my role as CBF endorser, I served several years on staff at CBF aligned churches, and then for 20 years as a hospital chaplain in healthcare organizations around the country. CBF has been an instrumental part of my own ministerial formation and journey in chaplaincy. Over the next half hour, I'll be interviewing 3 of our fantastic CBF endorsed chaplains who have agreed to share their chaplaincy journey with you. Paul, Ansia, and Leah, thank you so much for joining me. I'd love to begin by having each of you introduce yourself and tell us a little something about your ministry setting.
My name is Paul Bird. I am a CBF endorsed chaplain at Children's Hospital of Alabama, Children's of Alabama in Birmingham, Alabama. I have been here for 18 years.
Fantastic. Leah.
Aloha, I am Leah Bowling. I am currently the full-time chaplain at the 154 Wing in Honolulu, Hickam, Hawaii. And I have been a chaplain for the Air National Guard for 19 years and currently selected to be the director for Air National Guard Chaplain Corps.
Fantastic. And Ansia.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ansia. I am currently serving as a palliative care chaplain at the VA New York Harbor Healthcare System in the lovely borough of Brooklyn, New York, in New York City.
Fantastic. I am so proud of all 3 of you all, and it has been an amazing journey to get to know you all over the past 9 months since I'd moved into my role as endorser. Paul, what do you want our CBF family to know about your role as chaplain?
That it's the most fun I've ever had and and the most difficult thing I've ever done at the same time. I feel blessed so often to. I want to reflect on the last question. Yeah, I think that knowing your own story and um, how situations affect you is really, really important. But that leads, I think, naturally as a chaplain into being able to listen closely to another's journey and just be fascinated by that journey and hearing God's story in that life. Um, the ministry that is available to people across the spectrum that aren't like me, that aren't Baptists, that aren't even, oftentimes don't call themselves Christian, but hearing God's presence in their story and helping them hear that, not so much by evangelizing, but by just with them experiencing that, that is a beautiful, beautiful ministry. And people are hungry to tell that story and to have it listened to. So that that to me is part of the most amazing thing about chaplaincy. We get to be in that space with other people and get to share that journey and to know God's presence in new ways through their eyes. It really is a privilege.
Leah, what are some practical ways that our CBF family, including our local congregations and individuals, can support you and other chaplains in chaplaincy ministry?
Pray for us. So, especially since I will be moving to Andrews Air Force Base in Maryland in a few months, I would really ask my local congregation to, or the CBF as a whole, actually, to pray for me. Uh, it gives me comfort that I belong to an endorser, a fellowship that is more inclusive than exclusive. So that gives me peace of mind that, I am surrounded by all this energy and all this positivity, and that I can carry on my job as a director of the Air National Guard Chaplain Corps. So please pray for me, provide fellowship for us because we are going to be moving to DC area. So we are going to be reaching out to CBF because I don't know if you're aware, here in Oahu or Hawaii as a state, we only have one CBF church, and that's in the Big Island. We can't afford to travel every weekend to every Sunday. So, thankfully, we belong to another SBC church here that's very progressive, and they actually gave my endorsement when I said I'm gonna switch to CBF. So now that we're in DC area, Maryland, we will be able to find a CBF church. Hopefully, that's not too far from us. So fellowship, and then provide us encouragement. But really, I go back to pray for us. Pray, knowing what you know now because of this interview. That really I truly appreciate every prayer you can offer us chaplains, not just me, but all of us chaplains, because of the ministry and the role that we carry.
Ansia, you have served as a chaplain in multiple specialized settings. Can you tell us a little bit about those settings and what, if any, is a common thread for chaplaincy ministry that you've offered in all of those settings, and maybe a little bit about what's been different in the different settings, the very diverse settings that you have served in?
Sure, that's a great question, Renee, and I'd love to answer. I began my ministry as a correctional chaplain. I served a women's prison in Atlanta, Georgia, that since closed down, and then moved to the Hudson Valley area of New York to cover the entire Hudson Valley area, the correctional institutions, and specifically working with youth and young people that were serving sentences. That was extremely challenging. It was hard to work with young people that were some just over the age of 11 that were serving sentences. It definitely took a shift going from an adult population to a juvenile justice population. I then left that setting to work for a university. So I was a university chaplain, or sometimes called campus minister, in which I led lots of groups, service trips, overseas international missions work, community work within the local region and area, and then shifted into VA, which is totally different as well. A common theme that has come up for me within all of those settings is groups and really building trust within groups. The groups have been everything from spirituality group to DBT, dialectical behavioral therapy groups that I've led in correctional institutions, and then now oncology, spirituality support groups. A common thread amongst all those settings has been really meaning making. And that's something that many chaplains across various settings work in, and we do really well, is allowing people to speak what is true for them, allowing them to find their own inspiration and what matters to them at that point in their lives. So whether they are a young person that, and unfortunately we did have young people serving life sentences, how does one find meaning at 13 and 14 years old, knowing that you will be imprisoned for the rest of your life? That is something to talk through and really, really wrestle with. And how do you find spiritual hope when seemingly there may be so much to despair about? In addition to that, the transition to college, what that looks like for young men and young women that are away from home for the first time. How does one find new purpose and meaning when they've lost their friend group? And at 18, your friend group is everything. That's what you know. It's home base for you. And so finding new meaning as you emerge as a young adult, in coming into your own skin, and really developing your own core of ethics, your own belief system, and on all of the various things that matter to you.
In maybe a couple of sentences, what does being endorsed by CBF mean to you?
I already said it. It's that I am truly, truly grateful for my seminary professor, Dr. Johnson, who is my Old Testament professor. Um, so as you know, I belong to SBC, and then they endorsed me into hospital ministry when I moved here to Hawaii from the Philippines. So when I decided to join the military, they didn't know what to do with me because they, at that time in 2002, they no longer endorse women into the military. So they look at me like, oh, here's one that didn't belong to any box. So they grandfathered me. And in that journey, it was really a struggle because there were already memos coming out, email that you cannot do this, you cannot do that, you cannot do that. And I said, this is not God's calling for me. This is not what ministry that I, when I accepted the ministry, this is not what God, and I had an agreement. So I reached out to Dr. Johnson, who's a CBF, and when I told him I need to find a new endorser, and he was like, join CBF. It was a smooth transition, thank God. It was really, really smooth. And what it means really, like I mentioned earlier, I'm so glad I belong to this fellowship because we are more inclusive than exclusive. We are more loving, less judging, and that we do not nitpick our scripture. I when you endorse me, you believe that I am, capable of reading my Bible. You do not look down and, tell me, no, you cannot interpret it. No, you cannot say it. So yes, that's what it means to me. I'm truly, truly glad and grateful that I belong to CBF.
Ansia, what does being endorsed by CBF mean to you?
Yes. Last week, I had the privilege of being in company and community with Reverend Jason Coker and, the Baptist Fellowship of the Northeast. We are a small contingency, and we're a regional CBF group. And we had our biannual retreat with the theme of renew. And so none of us had gathered during the pandemic. So we were emerging or re-emerging out of pandemic, slowly back into community, and to be able to literally retreat together, have all of our meals together, sit with one another, listen to how the pandemic and the last year and a half has been a challenge for us, listen to our joys, pray about our sorrows in community while breaking bread, and really remembering our baptism. That was our theme, was remembering our baptism and what that means for us to do that in community. And so we used art, we used music, communion, fellowship, praying together. The CBF community means that one is not a chaplain in and unto herself or himself, that when we struggle, you have someone to uplift you. You are edified. When you have a need for consultation, you can call, as I often do with my endorser, Renee, who I love and adore dearly. Renee is a call away for support and for consultation and for constructive criticism and feedback. We all need that. We need accountability. We need our prayer, as Chaplain Bowling has said. And that it just makes me feel held, knowing that I don't have to have all of the answers and I don't have to do it perfectly. And even though we are imperfect, we are perfect as a fellowship, in my opinion, because all of us as a community support and love one another, and that is the basis for it. And so it just feels like being held and knowing that when you're needed and when someone needs you, we are there for one another. That's what it means to me.
And Paul,
You're welcome.
what does being endorsed by CBF mean to you?
So, Renee, there's a picture in your office that I saw last week when I came to visit you of Rachel Hunt Hill blessing at a commissioning service a chaplain who's being endorsed. And I love that picture. I think it is the visual image of what means so much to me about being endorsed by CBF. It is being blessed. Blessed in my ministry, blessed in my call, blessed in the ministry that I feel God is calling me to. I was endorsed by SBC before CBF was offered endorsement. And when I came to Children's, I was no longer able to be endorsed by them just because of changes that they had had in endorsement and what I hold true. And to be just, I love that idea of being held, being blessed in my ministry, and knowing that there are other folks of like heart and like calling who know what I do and are behind me and in prayer and in support and in blessing. It means the world.
Paul, thank you. What I'm hearing from you all is the freedoms that we have in being Baptist, being able to uphold those in our work as chaplains and pastoral counselors, the community that we find within the fellowship, and being blessed by that fellowship and upheld. I want to thank each one of you, Leah, Paul, and Ansia, for joining me for this time together. Thank you for sharing your story with us and with those who have been and will be joining us virtually, and for sharing a part of yourselves. I am so proud of each one of you, and I am so proud of the work that our CBF chaplains and pastoral counselors do every day to live out who we are as Cooperative Baptists, to live out and be a critical and essential part of the ministry of the fellowship. Thank you all for the work that you do individually and as a part of our fellowship. Thank you for this time together.
My name is Charlie Reynolds. I'm the Associate Endorser for the Military for the Cooperative Baptist Fellowship, and I've been working since the 1st of May and really enjoy working for CBF as an endorser. I am from Bedford, Virginia, and grew up in the Blue Ridge Mountains, and now I live in the Blue Ridge Mountains of South Carolina. I was a military chaplain for 28 years. Dr. Dan Bowling, who was one of my professors at Golden Gate Seminary, used to tell us that we probably stumble into God's will as much as we walk into it. And that's certainly how I became a military chaplain. I was a church planter, and I started out, I was single, and then I met my wife, Marcia, and we got married, and then we had a little boy, and my family was growing faster than my church, and I needed extra income. And somebody told me that the Army would pay me for the National Guard for 1 week in a month and 2 weeks a year. And that sounded great. And so I joined the California National Guard and soon found that I really loved the work of the chaplaincy. Had done a lot of camping and outdoor type activities growing up, and just really felt at home in the military. And one day my wife finally said, "You enjoy this so much, maybe you should go active duty." And so I applied. I'd been active duty for about 3 months and knew that I had found my calling. Military chaplains have many jobs and responsibilities, But our primary responsibility is to ensure the free exercise of religion, the practice of religion for all of our soldiers, regardless of their faith background. As Brandon LaChoy, one of my chaplain candidates, was talking to me, he said, it's my job to help every soldier along their spiritual journey. And so that's what we do. If there's not a priest there, I would ensure that the Catholic soldiers have access to a priest. I might bring in an imam, bring in a Jewish rabbi to perform services, while I would perform all the Protestant services. But that in itself is very different and challenging because I might drive in a Humvee for 2 or 3 hours through mud and dirt and maybe give a service for 5 soldiers. But they were so appreciative of my being out there that I love that type of ministry. On occasion, I would jump out of airplanes with soldiers to do ministry with them. And so it's more than just showing up in a Sunday morning and standing behind a pulpit. It's a very challenging vocation. I really love working with CBF chaplains. I had wonderful experiences as a chaplain. I was with Special Forces. I was with the 18th Airborne Corps. I worked as a religious advisor as the American Embassy in Iraq. And so I had all these many experiences, and being able to take that experience and help our young chaplains as they begin their careers, or we also have some very good chaplains. I've been very impressed with the quality of the chaplains within CBF. We have some chaplains working at the chief's office, both in the Air Force and the Army and the Navy. Very few denominations have a chaplain who becomes a general. There are very few positions for general or the Navy equivalent of admiral. But right now, the Cooperative Baptists, we have a Navy admiral who is just selected, Leah Bowling, who is going to be the senior chaplain for the Air National Guard. And then we have Terry Ettinger, who is an Admiral Ettinger, who is the senior chaplain for the reserves in the Navy. And so it is really a privilege to work with these chaplains, to help them along in that process. The best thing to do is to be where they're working, to be alongside them, to see what they're doing, and then to offer my own help. Some of you may wonder, why does CBF need endorsers? What do endorsers do? Why do we need to have them? The reason is that because the military basically says we are not qualified to select or to determine whether or not chaplains are qualified. We depend on the denominations to do that. And so before a person can apply to be a chaplain in the U.S. military, they have to be approved by a recognized religious endorsing body that says, yes, this person is qualified to be a chaplain. And so it's their job to ensure that the chaplains that want to apply for in the military, and it's very hard to get to be selected for a military chaplain. It used to be back during the war, it was much easier because we needed more chaplains. But now that the war is drawn down, there are not as many positions opening for military chaplains. And so it's very competitive. And so we have to make sure that our CBF candidates are ready and prepared so that when they go before that board, they can be selected to work in the military. So it's very rewarding to see chaplains be selected, to see those chaplains become great chaplains ministering to soldiers throughout the world.